Hey golfers, Michael Geiger here at our Second Swing Minnetonka location, presenting you the latest edition of our Live at Lunch series. Every Tuesday in September, we are here presenting you with some of the hottest topics in the world of golf. Today I'm joined by Second Swing Master Fitters Larry Bobka and Tyler Fitzel. Gentlemen, the topic today is tour trending putters. Larry, I remember that you told me once that there's really two ways to end up with $1 million as a putter maker. The first way is to have a player win a PGA Tour event with your putter, and the second way is to have $1 billion and lose $999 million and end up with $1 million. Larry, winning on tour and tour success is such a big part of the marketing around putters. What are some big trends and insights you've gained from kind of the tour success this year?
Well, if you look over the last couple of years, and and I'll take a little personal experience from this, part of the reason I work at Second Swing is because I was teaching Lucas Glover, and my wife decided, 5 years ago that Minnesota was nicer than Florida. I don't know about that one. So we're here, and Lucas at the time was putting arm lock, which is, again, another longer trend. Arm lock got hot for a while. And then 2 years ago, he had a really good year, and he was putting long. So we were out walking the practice round on Tuesday at TPC, and he's got the long putter, and I had to ask him. I said, a couple of years ago when we were working together, I suggested a long putter, and he's like, oh no, I'm never doing that, And then he goes on a tear with a long putter. So the thing about it is, you can't be afraid of trying different things, And he learned to putt long. He tried Adam Scott's putter on a practice green somewhere, decided that felt pretty good, ordered one, went home and taught himself for 2 weeks how to putt long. And it turned into a lot of victories, and so you see trends like that. Why do these trends happen? Well, because somebody's struggling. Ricky Fowler, great putting stroke. Ricky goes from putting with a normal, Scotty Cameron Newport putter to a long jailbird. Well, because it works. It helps you stroke the golf ball. I mean, what are we all trying to do? One, you're trying to get it to go in the hole, but the other thing is, I'm trying to make the best stroke possible. Mm-hmm. If I make the best stroke possible with the correct loft, I'm going to get a chance to make, because the speed's going to be good, and I got a chance to make every putt. And that's all they're doing there on TV right now, and that's what everybody in the store, and played in a charity tournament yesterday. You're playing in a scramble. What's a scramble about? It's all about putting. It's all about making putts. So, however you can do it, however it works, it works. We've got a whole bunch of styles here that are all what we would consider non-conventional, but what is conventional?
Yeah, Tyler, bringing you in, Larry mentioned kind of a rise in a lot of these. Maybe you might call them alternative styles of putter, 38-inch putters, broomstick putters, L.A.B putters have really seen a rise. Does that kind of match up with your experience and your fittings and just anecdotally speaking with customers?
Yeah, and even last week I mentioned the idea that we're kind of victims of popularity, and so when we see someone out there at the top of the game and they start using putters like this, we all think, well, hey, they're using it, so maybe I should. And there is a lot of technology that goes along with the technique in these. One thing I really I look for is every single person's going to have their own way of putting. I'd say that the putter is the most numerous of the models of any company in terms of a club, right? Might be 3 or 4 different driver heads and maybe 5 or 6 different styles in terms of an iron. But you get into putters, and all of a sudden there's 23 models, right? There's standard length, mid-length, long length. There's split grips and solid grips. And I think the big thing to that is finding something that's comfortable. So finding something that allows you to get into Larry said this before, right? Get into a comfortable position. That's number one. So your stance, comfortable, get it rolling down that line. All of these are options to that. Personally, I still have a long putter and a mid putter. I've never, ever, beforehand they banned the anchor rule. Mm-hmm. I never anchored anything, but what I really loved doing was go out and playing around or even practicing. and just kind of feeling the weight of that putter moving down that line. And that's one of the things that we try to capitalize on is the consistency. And a lot of these putters are generally heavier. And so they present maybe a little bit more consistency moving it down that target line too.
Well, yeah, and you talk about heavier. I mean, this is a longbow putter that Michael, you and I know from our Handmade Sticks brand. You know, this is 500 grams. Standard weight on a regular putter head's about 350 now.
Yeah.
Used to be around 300 grams. So, I mean, this is you know, this thing's heavy. But for the stroke, what you're trying to do, you know, that's what it's going to be. And you know, I'll give you a little personal. I putted long for about 5 years. You know, I was working for Titleist at the time. I was going through a little personal turmoil in my life with my first wife, and so I was struggling. So I went in to see Scotty, and I said, Scotty, I said, I need a long putter. He looked at me and he goes, what are you talking about? He goes, you got a great putting stroke. I said, yeah, but Scotty, I said, you know, getting divorced, I might be staying out a little bit too late at night, maybe a couple too many cocktails. And, you know, hey, it's Saturday morning. First of all, I need something to lean on just like this. Secondly, you know, the nerves weren't quite as solid, and so, you know, I putted. So he gave me one. I went out and took it in my Friday afternoon game back in California, hit 4 putts on the putting green and shot 68 with it. Well, it was in the bag for 5 years. So, you know, but that's what a tour player does.
Right.
You know, a tour player, hey, you know, I need to make some money. I need to make some cuts. I need to get into the, you know, I need to be exempt for next year. I need to get my card. Why wouldn't you try something?
Absolutely. Tyler, Larry mentioned kind of the Lucas Glover example earlier, and I think that's a lot of people's experience with these kind of long alternative putters is maybe it's a player who's kind of at the end of their rope, and this is kind of like their last-ditch effort to save their putting. Do you feel like kind of this year's success that we've seen on tour might convince players who maybe actually are pretty good putters already to switch to these kinds of putters and not just people who are desperate for anything to fix their game?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good observation to it. Is like let's get in and see if this can make things more solid for your stroke. Let's see if something with a bit more weight. I prefer, even just in general with a normal length putter per se, try to go a little heavier, right? Because one of the things that we see is we see a lot of inconsistencies. You know, people might be following the putter head around, and I also think too, in terms of the tour side of it, something to consider there. We've talked about this with a couple of other Live at Lunch Tuesdays. The putting greens that the elite level players are on from a week-to-week basis are very similar to one another, right? We don't see a lot of putter switching out there, but we do see some putter testing. It kind of becomes news, and that's because generally if someone's putting well with something, they want to keep that in the bag. It's when they're not really putting with something, or they're really starting to struggle with something. You've got to change that up. You've got to change your confidence, your mindset to it. You've got to see the ball rolling a little bit better. You want to see the ball going in the hole, because that obviously that means money for the guys on the elite level. And so this can kind of transform someone else's game that isn't maybe playing for that kind of money or just playing for money in general. Is coming in with a fitting where we can take a look at how does this option work? Does this work better for you?
Well, and the other side of it too, which I think is a big side of it, is we all get a little older. I've had back issues for the last couple years. You know, I'm 64 years old. Tyler's a little bit younger. You're definitely younger. But if I got a back issue and I want to practice my putting, you know, bending over at a 35-inch putter is going to hurt for a while. You know, if I go 38, if I go 40, if I go 44, if I go 48, I can stand a little bit taller. I can practice a little bit longer. So, you know, I think that's a factor that you can't dismiss in style of putting, because I can tell you from my personal experience, the hardest shots over the last couple of years are pitch shots and putts, because you're standing over it longer. You know, with a driver, you're teeing it up, take a practice swing, go ahead and hit it. You know, even from the fairway, take a practice swing, go hit it. But now I got a pitch shot, you know, I'm in my posture.
Yeah.
Practicing putting, I mean.
Well, that's something too, I'll ask people, you know, they'll come in and you know, for a customer, will say, well, how often do you practice my putting? Well, like you just mentioned, it's 4 shots on the practice screen before I play. So there does sometimes become this expectation that the equipment or the technology is going to take over for my technique. And yeah, I like to practice. I'll be an hour or more on a putting green before I'll ever go to the driving range. Just simply because you can accomplish
putter. Tyler and I work and find a better alternative putter, a longer length. Okay, what is a PGA Tour player? He gets a new putter. You practice more.
Yeah.
Because it's different. It feels different. It's heavier. It's a different stroke. It's a different feeling stroke. So now all of a sudden you practice better.
Kind of a blank canvas for your
Yeah, now all of a sudden, oh boy, what do we know? Why do we putt better? Because we practice more. Okay. Maybe people don't want to practice with that 35-inch that much, or they're frustrated with you. Grab it. Johnny Miller always used to call when he put a new putter in the bag, when he had his putting woes, he goes, there's always that wow factor. Looking for that putter that works 1 week. But if I practice more with it, now I'm going to become better. So I just think that, again, we've been talking about this for 3 weeks now, talking about putting. Why not try something different? I mean, I think it's crazy not to try something if it feels like you're going to create a better stroke, helps me practice longer, and oh, by the way, what do we always talk about? Less acceleration through the ball. Well, let me tell you something. It's really hard to accelerate a 500-gram putter through the ball.
It is.
I mean, Tyler, hit a couple putts with that.
Well, no, I'll take this.
Yeah, take this one, because that one's heavy.
Like I said, I've never really anchored anything. So for me, it's just about kind of bringing this back and letting it fall down the line. And really, the big thing is,
we can make a deal on that for you.
Yeah.
We can work something out.
We can work something out for you.
Does it come with a head cover?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Of course it does.
And
but I mean, there you just picked it up and grabbed it.
Yeah.
That's part of the attraction, because now you're looking. Go ahead and set yourself up again. I mean, you're looking at a stroke that basically, you say it's not anchored, but we're anchoring that left. We're anchoring that left hand.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're just allowing the right hand to move the putter through, and at that weight, pretty good.
Yeah, and this is one thing you mentioned very early on when we had these discussions. Remember, we did a podcast on the classics, where did the blade putter go?
Right.
And you mentioned one of the things is you would encourage people to kind of go out, and if you can, go scrap around and maybe grab one of those old classic blade putters.
Right.
And if you can find one of these old long putters, is to do some practicing with that. Because what you start to develop is you start seeing, hey, my right hand maybe needs to be a bit more or less active. My left hand needs to be something, getting into different positions.
Right.
Of course you would. This would to create a little bit of shaft lean.
Right.
The long putter is interesting because where you have that long putter also does mean a lot with the shaft lean.
Well, but it means with every putter, though.
Yes. For me, for me,
I think you should be putting long.
This shape doesn't agree with my eye.
Well, but for a lot of people it does.
Yes.
Okay, a lot of people come in and enjoy that shape.
Why don't we press pause on the L.A.B right here?
Right.
Well, that's a real big kind of part of this movement. What do you guys think about L.A.B and their kind of growth over the past year, maybe 2 years?
Well, I think they've done a couple things. They have their technology where they talk about, they have their little putter swinger thing, and show the stability of their heads. Okay. They've spent a lot of time, Bill Pressey's the guy that originally designed the L.A.B putter. Ran into him at our store. In fact, I ran into him in the store on the putting green in Arizona in February. I walked up to him and he looked at me and he's like, "What in the world are you doing here?" And I'm like, "What in the world are you doing here? I work here." You're just messing. So, but he has spent a tremendous amount of time trying to understand and trying to help people play better. I think the technology works great. I think the technology works very good for a long putter or a longer putter. I'm not as thrilled with the performance I see with shorter putters with the L.A.B, but that's okay because there's a little bit more, most people have a little bit more face rotation with a shorter putter, where this stroke, tends to be a little bit, we're now at very upright lie angles, and the putter doesn't rotate too much. So to me, it's a very stable head for a long putter, without a doubt. It's gonna make a lot of putts. It's got a decent look to it. And so, I think, and again, but you see some success. You see Adam Scott out there. Then, Lucas has success with it. And Will Zalatoris is in the bag. And then other guys have it in the bag. And all of a sudden, you kind of create this rage because as things go, it's Tuesday practice round. Lucas wins the last golf tournament. He's playing with a couple of guys. Somebody grabs his putter and goes, "Hey, can I hit a couple putts with it?" Well, all of a sudden they make a couple putts from 15 feet, and after the round's over, they're going searching out the L.A.B rep to find their putter.
Right.
Okay. So that's where it kind of builds, and it's kind of the same thing with the Jailbird. You had the success with Ricky, you had the success with Wyndham Clark, and then all of a sudden it kind of snowballs.
Tyler, you mentioned the L.A.B. It's certainly a polarizing look. Does Larry's kind of insight there kind of speak to your experience with Fitties in the store?
Yeah, and one of the things that people will do is they'll come in and say, I really want to try the L.A.B putter. That's one of the best parts about our job is being able to just try these things with customers and say, hey, what does this look? How does this work? Technology is really, I would say, we've talked about this in terms of handles and swings and in previous sessions. The offset or the creating of shaft lean in a L.A.B putter is the technology that I think works the best in every situation for most people, unless they have a forward press or they're really getting the shaft lean on it. That really messes around with the amount of loft that's created, and that's why we talk about the roll, where Quintech, the technology is seeing what the launch of the ball is, the spin, the side spins, the back spins or over spins. That's really what matters. So when the ball hits this surface, what's it going to do coming off here? And we've seen a lot of success with that. Other companies now have started to create more shaft lean type putters. We've seen prototypes out, we've seen early releases. That's another one right there.
Let's get more shaft lean.
Yep.
There you go.
And so I think what we're seeing is, again, the popularity from the tour level kind of start to transcend down into what we would call, say, maybe just the retail level or the recreational golfer, the competitive golfer that's not on the tour.
Okay, so the first long putter I ever saw was back in the 80s. There was a guy by the name of Charlie Owens who played on the senior tour, it was called back then. Charlie had been a paratrooper in the Army, hurt his knee, couldn't walk very well, but so he putted with a long putter because he couldn't bend over very well. And back then it was just trying to find a head and trying to make it heavy enough. I mean, some of these they had player on the senior tour, and most of the world, okay, at a PGA Tour level, you might not want to do it, but you know what? For the average golfer that's out there that's trying to play, I have customers come in here that have, some medical issues, that they have some shakes, and
And they're really
and they're trying to go. They're just trying to play golf with their buddies at their club.
Right.
You know what? Who really cares if they anchor it to the body and their putt? They're just trying to have fun and keep the game going. So, from my standpoint, hey, when the USG banned different anchoring, they banned this, they banned the belly putter, but they left the arm lock putter alone. Okay. Well, my opinion, if you're going to ban anchoring, bang everything.
Sure.
Right? Or leave everything alone.
Sure. Tyler, in our comments, Darren presents a bit of a devil's advocate. He says, I really like counterbalance putters for short putts, but I always struggle with long putts and distance control with it.
Yeah.
That's often a common criticism you hear, particularly for longer putters, is the distance control.
It's usually the opposite.
it is.
It's usually they hit counterbalance putter better from long, and then they struggle from short distance.
Yeah,
so
correct.
Yeah. So, but again, that might have to do a little bit with how he strokes the ball. Is there over acceleration in his stroke? Does he might not have the correct spec? Does he have the right loft on the putter? Was he fit for that putter? That has a lot to do, because think about it this way, if you get on Quintec, and if I'm hitting a little 4-footer, okay, I'm not putting that much energy in there, and the loft's off, I'm going to have some issues with it, but it's not going to magnify it. If I get 30 or 40 feet away and I have the wrong loft, now I'm going to get the ball airborne or drive it into the ground, and I'm not going to control my speed better. So my guess, it's probably more of a loft-related issue than a style of putter.
And even to add to that too, is especially when you start looking at the length of the putter, the putts that you're putting with, we have examples of differences with the same putter for from long distances to short. Like we know for a while there, Jordan Spieth would, on shorter putts of a type, would look at the hole while he putted, versus further back he wouldn't necessarily. I think Ricky Fowler had two different grips depending on how far away he was, or
I do that all the time.
Or was it might have been like with Ricky, it might have been I use a line basically for anything 10 feet and under, but as he's further back, he might not use a line on his ball.
I think you've seen players mess around with the claw, maybe inside 15 feet, and then they go kind of standard for lag putts.
Yeah, so I think the differences in the styles of how you might grip or line it up or how you might look goes to the styles of the putter too. You've said this, and I know I've said this before. If you have space in the bag and you want to carry two putters, one long and one short putter, by all means, the object is getting it into the hole, not how. And let's say, for instance, you're talking about a 54-degree wedge that you might have in your bag, and you're talking about a shorter chip versus a much longer chip. It's the same club, you have to use it differently. And I think putting goes the same way. And if you have a tendency to hit much longer chips better versus shorter chips, maybe that means a different club.
Yeah, I mean, perfect example. We played in a scramble yesterday, and thank God I had Aaron Roth with me to hit it a lot farther than I do. But you go play the scramble yesterday. I never hit my 5-iron. I never hit my 7-iron. I never hit my 9-iron. But they're in the bag, so why not? And it's a scramble. It's all about putting. Hey, if I don't make a couple putts on the first few greens, why not grab the other putter and hit a few putts with it? I mean, who cares? I mean, that's the thing. I think the thing that people have to go away from, and I think it's getting better and better, is there's more on the internet. There's more information. I can tell you when I played junior golf and high school golf and college golf. Let me tell you something. If you didn't have a blade style putter or a ping putter, people look at you and go, "Really, this guy sucks." You wouldn't think of having something that's non-conventional.
Right.
Hey, people were like that when all of a sudden Ping I2 came out in the 80s. You're like, people are looking like, "Oh my gosh, you got those?" We play golf with blades. Now we've got this, and it's like. Then all of a sudden people found out that they work pretty damn good, right?
Right.
It's the same thing with this. I think the misconceptions, the worst thing in golf to me is that little word called ego. You got to set your ego aside. Be honest with yourself. What's going to work the best? Come in here, try some different things out, try some different styles. That's why we have our 30-day play guarantee. It's a perfect example. You know, I had a guy this morning that went from a short putter to a long putter, and I said, hey, you know, try it out for 2 or 3 weeks. You know, here's my card, here's my cell phone, shoot me a text, let me know how it's going. You know, because you're going polar opposite. But he was totally frustrated with his putting, hated what was going on, and needed a change. And we found something that helped his putting stroke get better. So, hey, you know me. You're talking to one of the biggest traditionalists when it comes to playing golf in the world. You know, still have storage units full of persimmon woods if anybody wants to buy any. You know, but that's me. Okay. But if I'm going to play golf and I'm going to play golf with somebody and they're going to enjoy the game, why not? And like I said, I used one of these for 5 years. You know, put your ego aside and enjoy the game. Make some putts, you know. Plus, you're playing in a Friday game. I didn't want to lose a couple $100 every Friday. So, you know, ball had to go in the hole.
I think one of the things, too, is as you start looking at all of the options, there are so many options out there. And that's one of the reasons why being able to test and roll and look at it with some numbers, that can help. It might help get past the look and the feel of something and maybe help identify. Also, talking about like some of the common putters, right?
Yeah.
This one is has made its way to the PGA Tour via prior generations. And one of the things that I get from customers quite often is, well, how am I supposed to hold it? Because that's it really, with a long putter, you know, I want to grip up here, or maybe I want, you know, there are people with long putters that'll just hold it down here and use it like that too, kind of freewheeling. There's no one way to do this. And so we start looking at people that might have a little bit more of a claw grip style to this. We might have someone that holds it up here or here. You might have left hand low. That's one of the other things that you start looking at with the putters is study how the guys on the tour are using them, because they don't all use them the same way. They don't grip them the same way. But there's lie angle and loft that may need to go into it. So if we have an opportunity to look at it and say, oh, I really want one of these. I remember I put one of these in the hands of a young player who ended up winning a state tournament like weeks ago, like a month ago. It's like, he came in and I'm like, okay, let's see how it works. And he couldn't miss.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to get in the way of that. That's the last thing I'm going to do.
Oh.
Well, you know, you're young. You should really be putting with this or this. But that's the whole point. If this works for you.
Well, and that's the other thing that you don't necessarily see or get off the internet is somebody's using a putter, but how are they using it? How's the style? What do they do? You know, do they talk about, well, you know, when Ricky Fowler putts a short putt, he goes a little bit farther down on the grip. When he putts a longer putt, he goes a little bit more up on the grip to get a little more weight and a little bit more swing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's like I said yesterday. You know, I putted with, you know, my answer style putter yesterday. In the uphillers, I putted claw because I felt like I needed to give it a little more hit. In my downhillers and sidehillers, I putted conventionally with a conventional putting grip because it just felt more comfortable, you know, made some putts.
Tyler, we mentioned the Jailbird a couple times. Why don't you hit a few with it and kind of give us your thoughts?
Well, one thing I like, I like about this is the way that all putters they have a design with the features for alignment. You've got this contrast. It is a little bit more squared. That's one of the things that almost all the putters today are looking for, is trying to find a alignment that goes along with it. Oh, that's the first miss.
I think you got to go long.
But it goes back to this idea as well that how does this look for you? We talk about some of the other styles, whether they've got fangs on the back or they're a little bit shallower or they're more traditional answer style, Newport style.
Well, I mean,
looking.
they're all here. I mean, you take a look at all these different manufacturers, and everybody, you know, every manufacturer has a different idea and a different thought on what's going to make a good putter. Which you also have to remember too, which we talk about all the time, which a lot of time doesn't get talked about, is the center of gravity of that putter. Where does the center of gravity of that putter sit? Does it sit closer to the face? Does it sit in the center? Does it sit in the back? You know, where does that, and does that center of gravity hurt or help your putting stroke? You know, if I've got somebody who likes to tend to throw the putter head, I would probably not put him in what Tyler has in his hand, or I'm sorry, I would put him in because that center of gravity is going to be closer to the face, and it will help that throw a little bit. Where I have a center of gravity that sits in the back, that throw gets exaggerated. Okay, so that, you know, that's the thing you have to look at too, and you have to understand is you know, as a putter fitter or as you're buying a putter, you know, come in and ask some questions, because there's just, you know, there's not just the weight of the head, the length of the putter, there's loft, there's center of gravity, there's grip as we've talked about. You know, there's a lot of things that influence the putt, and you got to remember, you know, if I hit a drive, I got this nice long swing where I can make a little recovery if I feel like I make a bad swing. I mean, Tyler's hitting a putt here, there's no recovery time, okay? If I don't take it back correctly and hit it squarely, my chances of making that putt are minimal.
Right.
Let's go back to technology. We talk about tour adoption with this and talk a little bit about where this all started. A lot of these mid putters and long putters were on the market because they were becoming successful for people. But when that anchor band went into effect where you couldn't hold that against your body or the arm is a different scenario to this, then we had putter companies come up with different designs. The first design that came out was to try to mimic the long putter style. It was a dual balance by Scotty Cameron as well. So he had something that was a lot heavier here. He had a really heavy plug weight up on the top, so that in essence it performs a bit more like the long putter. It's just that it was shorter in actual length. That wasn't a very popular style for the tour. So because the tour didn't adopt that, I don't feel like that was, and you were there at the time. I don't feel like that for the tour didn't adopt it. We didn't see that popularity. So it didn't really take off as a putter, but now here we are, we're back at them. And now all of a sudden they're popular again, and I feel like they're popular because we see more and more players on the tour. Once that the tour kind of sets the tone for what we see.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what you have to go back to what we've talked about in the past is you got to feel the weight of that head, okay? And the dual balance didn't do that, okay? It kind of moved that balance point, you know, farther up the shaft here.
Yeah.
So the putter didn't feel correct.
Oh, it was clunky.
It didn't feel right. You know, there was a putter company that came out years ago, the Heavy Putter. And the Heavy Putter had a heavy head. I have no idea where they got the shaft. I think it was a solid golf shaft. I mean, this thing weighed a ton.
Just filled it with tungsten.
Yeah, this thing weighed a ton. They had a heavy grip on there to get people from not being yippy. Okay, well, it felt okay, but it was so heavy that, you know, your touch wasn't very good. You know, and at the end of the day, what's it about? You know, I talk about all the time, it's all about speed. Okay? If I can find the style of putter that helps me roll at the right speed with square contact, I'm going to make putts.
Speed.
It's
just about everything.
Yeah, so
Speed. Larry, we've had a wonderful discussion today on kind of the tour trending putters, kind of where it's going, kind of the state of the landscape today. Do you have any kind of final thoughts on the tour trending putters? I know earlier you mentioned kind of the importance of kind of maybe getting golfers to break out of the rigidity of their mindset around putting. Is that kind of where you'd like to go with this?
Yeah, I think, and I'll use an example, the longbow putter that we carry, okay? Zach Miller was a great college player at Stanford, but couldn't putt, was almost about to give up the game because it was so bad, and went to a long putter and decided that was the way to go, and has turned it into a company and turned it into his passion. Well, his passion and his company came out of necessity for his own golf game. So I think we all have to take a look at it and look inside and sit there. And that's why I always tell customers that come in here, some of the people that I teach, you got to analyze your golf game. You got to take that ego back and you got to look at it kind of as a business deal. Okay, well, you know what? I'm driving it great. I hit my fairway woods really good. My irons are really good. What am I doing bad? Well, I'm not converting enough putts. I'm not making. I'm 3-putting 4 times around. Well, if I'm shooting 76 and I'm 3-putting 4 times around, what's the easiest way to lower your score? Stop 3-putting.
Yeah.
And it's all about speed. So to me, that's where you have to really take a look at it and not feel like you're tied into, or because your buddies are going to say, oh, you're an old man, or you're anchoring, you're cheating, whatever. I think you have to take a step back from that and just realize that if you really want to enjoy the game and if you really want to play well and you want to improve your scores, this certainly is one of the easiest ways to improve your scores.
Tyler, they say necessity is the mother of invention. We'll give you the last word here. For golfers that really need some help, maybe they're thinking about doing a putter fitting, but maybe they feel they're not even good enough to kind of merit coming into our store. What would you say about these kind of tour trending putters, these long putters, as an option for these golfers?
Well, just like you said too, invention. The best part about it becoming popular on the tour is that we have engineers and marketing that are creating more tools like this. They're trying to be creative with it, whether it's the shapes, the alignments, the sizes, the weights, the grips. We're going to continue to see this because it is now a popular trend. How long the trend goes is what we don't know. And so I think as we start seeing year after year more of these style putters appear in the portfolio for every one of these companies, it becomes a perfect time to start looking at some of these from maybe last year, the year before. We have used putters that way. And when someone else might give up on a putter that they tried on, well, it could be the next person's putter, and even at a lesser price. So I think the technology and the engineering is right on track with that. And that's what's exciting about fitting, is that there's always new stuff coming out, which means there's always older stuff that other people can continue to try and get at a great price. But I think the fitting is the key there. Let's come in, let's see how it rolls. Let's find out what's going on with that ball. Let's find out with this club or that club, long versus short, intermediate.
Well, think about it. It's like buying a car. Okay? Well, cars have engines, cars have 4 wheels, cars have steering wheels, right? It's got all this stuff. You look in the parking lot out there, there's everything from trucks to Jeeps to, high performance sports cars, everything, There's no one way to drive. There's no one way to putt, So come in and look at your options. Do some test driving.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you go. Maybe the answer to this question is that while trends can be fickle, expert advice is evergreen. We got some great expert advice from 2 of our best fitters here at our Minnetonka location. Tyler, Larry, I'd like to thank you for joining us on our latest Live at Lunch. Tune in next Tuesday at noon Central Time for our next edition. We thank you for watching. Gentlemen, thanks again.
And to Sean and Drew behind the scenes, stay razor sharp.
At Second Swing, we know it's not you, it's your clubs. That's why we offer over 100,000 new and used golf clubs and a team of experts who help you find the perfect option for both your swing and your budget. Customize your bag with a tour-level fitting.